I'm Jennifer Joe. I'm the editor-in-chief of MedTech Boston, and this is...
I'm Sony Salzman, managing editor. Thank you guys for coming.
So I just was going to give a brief welcome, and then we'll start soon. So thank you for being here. This is the MedTech Boston Google Glass Challenge. Introducing Dr. Raphael Grossman. He's the general trauma, advanced laparoscopic, and robotic surgeon, the first person to ever use Google Glass during a live surgery. So we are excited to have him here all the way from Bangor, Maine.
Telemedicine allows us to do virtual medicine through live streaming. And one of the reasons that telemedicine is important is because we know that there is about 1 billion of its visits approximately in the United States, and 80% of those visits don't require the physical touch. So if you go to see your doctor many times, almost 80% of the times, you don't really require the doctor to touch you. So having a remote connection really has a reason, and that's the reason why a device like Google Glass has incredible potential. Like I said, I see Google Glass as the natural evolution in the computing device, connecting us humans to the digital realm. Just like in the past we used devices that were big, now we have been shrinking those devices. So we've been shrinking those devices to Google Glass. And I think that, this is just another step. And eventually, something like Google Glass or Google Glass will substitute all those other tools that we use to connect to the digital realm. So does the patient has an allergy? Does the patient need more oxygen? Things that are really important.
Give me patient information.
Imagine a Google Glass in a trauma situation where we can have the information beamed to us intuitively without us having to think about this.
Timeout complete.
Okay, Glass, record an op note and take an order.
Wow, this video played. Telementoring for Google Glass is something that is also a sort of a holy grail, being able to remotely teach or help someone in trouble, do a procedure, or help someone take care of a patient. Glass is certainly the perfect platform for that. So you are beaming the information to someone with Google Glass remotely located. I was just across the hallway, basically. But just to prove the point that this is something, this is the way we still learn medicine. Students cram behind you in the operating room trying to see what you're doing in the operating room. Well, Glass allows us to basically show them our perspective, our point of view. They can not just see that in a recorded video. They can actually be there virtually present with us, and they can answer questions, they can ask questions, and they can be seen through our eyes exactly what the surgeon is doing. So when we did the first surgery with Glass, that's what I showed, that point of view of how to do a procedure. You can be located anywhere, and you can be there with me, looking exactly what I'm looking. Imagine that I'm doing a procedure and I get in trouble. I want to have the expert somewhere, help me. Well, he can know and see exactly what I'm seeing just with a device like this.
So let me actually show you how I'd like to use the electronic health record. So first, I show up in the morning. I actually want the ability to get access to my list of patients. And if I heard that someone was sick overnight, so let's say Kathy was sick overnight, I want to quickly be able to go to Kathy's chart. So let's actually scroll up, and we've got Kathy. And so Kathy's in Tower 8A. And so I want to be able to go see Kathy very quickly. So let's actually take care of this, find out Kathy's actually okay, and now I want to actually go see my patients room to room to room. I want to quickly be able to switch between that context and the context where all my patients are now sorted by what room they're in. And so now we can actually two-finger tap, and so now all the patients have been sorted, and now I can go see our test patient, who's actually named Test, on 11C, work my way down to 11A, 8A, the third floor, and then finally make my way over to the Shapiro building, which is another building at Brigham and Women's. So now let's say I actually found out that there's a patient, William, who's actually pretty sick right now. So we actually go need to see him right away. Now, I'm a kidney doctor, and so what I was told is that he actually has abnormal electrolytes, and so that's the presenting complaint. So I actually want the electronic health record to have to automatically be able to pull up where I am in the hospital using an RFID tag and actually show me the patient's info that I actually need to get. So let's triple tap and actually three-finger tap and get to William's chart. Perfect. So first thing I want to know actually is what do the labs show? Because that was one of the big things that I was told that this patient needs to be seen for. Show me the lab results. So the important thing here is that we're actually right at the patient's bedside, looking at the patient. And as we're looking at the patient, we can get access to this information. And so the lab data right now happens to come in a little bit slowly, but the important point is that we're not now sitting at a computer desk, we're actually right by the patient. And so very quickly we can see in kind of traditional physician notation that the sodium is actually quite low at 120, the chloride is quite low at 82, and so this is someone who deserves to be in the intensive care unit. So if I want to scroll down the list, I can look down. If I want to go back up, I can look up. And so let me focus in on that sodium and try to figure out why this patient has a low sodium. Show me the trend for sodium. So last sodium was pretty low, but actually all the sodiums before that look like they actually have been relatively normal, a few low ones there. And going back to 2002, we can see that the sodiums are actually 140, and so they're normal. So now we actually have a different context, and we know that something changed. So one of the reasons people get low sodium is medications. Show me the medications. And now if this patient could actually talk, he's in the ICU, he's intubated, he unfortunately can't tell me anything, but if he could, I could actually use this as an opportunity to actually engage with the patient. So looking at this list, I can tell you as a kidney doctor that Diazide and Zoloft are two medications that probably are causing the low sodium. So very quickly at the bedside, I'm going to turn to the ICU team and say, intensive care unit team, I would go ahead and stop the Diazide. I would go ahead and stop the Zoloft if you haven't done so already. So another thing I do very commonly as a kidney fellow is I put in lines. And so the ICU team actually said, oh, it's so great that you're here. We just placed a central line on a patient. And a central line is basically an intravenous catheter that we use to deliver medications. And you have to make sure it goes in the right place. So it goes through the neck, and it's supposed to end just above the heart. And so they're actually saying, all right, well, why don't you make sure that line's in place since you're already here seeing this patient? So I say, sure, I'll take care of it. Show me the chest x-ray. Okay, so let's actually zoom out, get a better look at just the overall picture. Perfect. So we can see the left lung looks not so good. There's a line coming in from the very top on your left, and that's actually the central line. There's another line in the middle that's a nasogastric tube. And so I want to get a better look at that central line, make sure it doesn't go into the heart, that it ends just above. So let me actually zoom in so I can go left and right. And I would argue that that line actually looks okay, and so they can go ahead and use it. And so now that we're done with the clinical encounter, one thing I might want to do is actually talk to the primary care doctor, give an update on what just happened. Who's the primary care doctor? So, oh, excellent. It's actually my friend Clifford. And so, one important thing is that this was able to text it to me, and now I can click to dial. I can talk to Clifford, give him an update on his patient, Mr. William Test. And, we've now closed the clinical encounter. And again, this would usually be done all from the comfort of your desk. And now we're saying we're doing this at the bedside, where it actually is probably the best place to do this. So I hope what I've shown you is that the use of a wearable electronic health record has the potential to fundamentally change the way we approach patient care and bring back some of that lost art of medicine. By overcoming the limitations of a traditional electronic health record, we have the opportunity to interface with information about patients where we need it most, at the patient's bedside. Thank you.
If, portable computing, if you just kind of consider that, really has the potential to unleash you from the workstation, to unshackle you. and really have some dramatic improvements in clinical workflow. It's no longer I go see the patient, go back to the workstation, figure out what I have to do next, go back to the next patient, go back to the computer, and back to the patient. It means that we can go from patient to patient to patient. And that can really have some dramatic improvements. And so when we went live with the iPad, live one day after they came out, actually, we deployed them live. And we did a study looking at how it affected clinician workflow. And we found that clinicians spent, on average, 38 minutes less at a workstation over an 8-hour shift. And so you can imagine that's a really dramatic improvement. Now, we're doing the same thing with Google Glass in our live deployment, and we anticipate we'll get better. We'll get the same, if not better, improvements. A list of all the patients that I could kind of see in the emergency department right now, with both their room number as well as their name. So I can kind of swipe and see the patient's vital signs, their triage note, and things like that. I'm just going And so it's not unusual for a patient to come up to me and say, hey, I need X, Y, or Z. Who's my nurse? And I'll be like, well, so this is a quick way of saying, oh, this is your nurse, and actually she's right there. Or this is your medical student, and they're right there. A glass view of our normal clinical applications. So you can also have medication reconciliation, allergies, their problem list, wait for a second, as well as kind of what orders have been placed on the patient. And this is all live streaming data. So as soon as it's updated on the EMR, it's updated here as well. Laboratory results, radiology, and let's say we want to look at their images. We render all of our DICOM images into JPEG, which is accessible by glass, and we do the same thing with our EKGs as well. Yep, there you go. Or for example, I walk by a patient and the patient's extremely hypotensive, and I want to let my colleague, another attending, know about it. And operator, page attending. This patient is extremely hypotensive, period. You need to be here, period. And that will go straight to my pager. So what V2 is really, how do we integrate with our entire enterprise? And so this is a screen that's generated on the fly that taps into the Massachusetts Prescription Monitoring Program. And we can tell really quickly, is this patient abusing opioids? And so we can get all that information about that patient, not just from our systems, from other systems as well. And so the next thing we wanted to do is we wanted to use machine learning and utilize all the data that we have about the patient, their past medical history, their current medical history, all the repeated vital signs, and risk stratify them to tell who's sick, who's not sick, who do I need to see next that hasn't been seen. And so this is a graphical visualization of how sick they are based on their predicted 30-day mortality. using really deep machine learning techniques. How do you tell patient context? You can have context-specific displays of information that are tailored to that patient's disease process. And what we do is we show very specific tailored screens to that patient so they can very quickly tell what's going on with that patient. So you can see that this patient's last stress was in 5/9/13, and last cath never had one, and the last EF was 35%. And you can kind of scroll down and look at their EKG, and kind of scroll even further and look at their chest X-ray. The screen's a little bit just. Operator, record a note. This is a 35-year-old male complaining of chest pain, period. He has no family history of cardiac disease, period. He is on no blood thinners, period. Not perfect, so sorry. So this is actually the dictation function. So if I was seeing a patient, I can dictate in real time, and that'll go straight to the electronic medical record. Now we determine patient context based on QR codes that are in front of the patient rooms that tell what room you're looking at. Really waiting for was Bluetooth LE. And so we're putting Bluetooth beacons in every single room so that you no longer have to scan a room. As soon as you walk by the room, the glass knows exactly where you are, and it can deliver that information whether or not you're looking for it or not. And so that's kind of what we have. I'm about out of time, so I'm going to call it a day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.